one potential name who could come in and help them with that run prevention. You had actually reported this just a couple hours before we started recording, but potentially the Mets' interest in Cody Bellinger, which has been reported by a couple different outlets at this point. You had written, don't be surprised if the Mets are heavily in on Bellinger in free agency, since the club is looking to upgrade their defense. You also noted that there was a possibility, perhaps, that they could look, for Bellinger to play at first and then in the outfield positions as well. And even maybe being a world where him and Alonso were on the same team together. Is this something that you just kind of see as a fit yourself? Is this something you're hearing that the Mets are really seriously considering?
Yeah, well, I have heard that they're interested in him, and I think that it's a really great fit, honestly, especially if Alonso does leave, then you could have Bellinger play first base. The only problem with losing Alonso and adding Bellinger is that your lineup is very left-handed heavy, and they're missing a significant right-handed bat in the middle of the order. But yeah, I think Bellinger, you could stick him at first, you could stick him in center, he could potentially play left field and move Nimmo to DH, which Nimmo's defense has really been on the decline over the last several years. So yeah, it is something that I've heard that they're interested in. And also, like I said a couple of weeks ago, don't be surprised if they're heavy in the Bellinger market this offseason. And I think it's a great fit. We keep hearing that he's a top priority for the Yankees to bring back, but if the Yankees can't come to an agreement, maybe the Mets swoop in there and steal him like they did with Soto last year.
Man, could the Yankees really let the Mets do that to them 2 off seasons in a row? It's hard to picture, but I guess nobody thought they could do it once last year, so you never know. Do you think he would primarily be a backup plan to Alonso? It's if you look at certain market projections or like what Spotrac puts out there, both Alonso and Bellinger probably going to get similar contracts in terms of money. Bellinger might get a longer contract just because he has that defensive side to his game and more versatility. Yeah. But do it's the Mets kind of have potentially unlimited funds, but would they really be willing to spend that kind of money on both of these players who share a position?
If it were me, I would sign both of them. I think you got to add more, especially when you're trying to compete with teams like the Dodgers in the National League and the Phillies, of course. But it's probably an either or situation where, Bellinger would be the backup plan to Pete. I think that's just, you look at how much money, and you said it, like the Mets have deep pockets, that they can sign both of them. They have the power to, but will they? I'm not so sure. I think that Bellinger would be the perfect backup plan to losing Pete. Or, in a world where both of them are on the roster, you put Bellinger at first base, maybe you DH Pete, and that improves your defense as well. So, it remains to be seen. I think the Mets are going to be aggressive, of course, like I've been saying. But at the same time, it's probably realistically an either or situation.
Yeah. And, speaking of Alonso, you had come out with an article about a week and a half ago at this point, I'd say, about what you were hearing about the Mets offseason plans at that point. And when you had written that, it seemed like from what you were hearing that you were feeling that Pete Alonso seemed like he would likely walk in free agency unless he had taken a team-friendly deal. Conversely, you seemed a little bit more optimistic that Edwin Díaz would potentially come back because of, his age, the qualifying offer, how many teams are going to be, interested on trying to outbid the Mets with all those things attached to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot can change in a week and a half in the offseason, and it seems like the wins on both these players have potentially blown in different directions since then. In the 10 days or so since you wrote that, have your thoughts or what you've been hearing on both of these players changed?
Well, we heard Díaz speak at the All MLB Awards, and he called it 50-50 that he's going to be back with the Mets. And so my level of optimism of them re-signing him kind of lowered a little bit from those comments. It sounds like he's not going to take any hometown discount. He's going to take the best deal that's out there and the best chance to win. And, teams like the Blue Jays, and I don't think the Dodgers, I'm skeptical on the Dodgers' interest in Díaz, if there is any. I haven't really heard anything on that front, but I don't know that that's a real landing spot for Diaz, but teams like the Blue Jays would be perfect for Diaz. And if Diaz was on the Blue Jays this year, they probably win the World Series. I think he locks down the 9th inning and doesn't give up that home run to Miguel Rojas like Jeff Hoffman did. But hindsight's 20/20, and I do think that he'd be a good fit. With the Jays and with some other teams, maybe the Padres if they lose Robert Suarez. But the Mets can't afford to lose Diaz. Like, they have no contingency plan. They don't have any internal options, and they would have to go with a lesser option or an older option on the free agent market. If they were to lose Diaz, whether that's Robert Suarez, whether it's Kenley Jansen, Pete Fairbanks, like the options aren't better than Diaz. So I think they should pay him what he wants.
Right.
We've heard that he's asking for 5 years, $102 million, which is what he got from them 3 years ago. I think the Mets should give it to him, and I think that he's one of their most valuable players. So with Diaz, optimism went down a little bit just because of his asking price and his comments that he made publicly. And with Alonso, I don't think anything's changed. I think that, we've also heard some, conflicting reports that it's premature to say like that the Mets are definitely going to move off Alonso. But I think that it's a similar spot to last year. Like, I don't think the Mets philosophy has really changed. I mean, what changed was that Pete Alonso had 38 home runs, 126 RBIs, 871 OPS, career high, 272 batting average. Like, he had an elite season, 141 WRC plus. Like, Alonso was, one of the best right-handed hitters in the game in 2025. But he's a year older. His defense is not superb, and he projects as a long-term DH, which Soto probably projects as a long-term DH as well. So do the Mets want to hamstring themselves with 2 long-term DHs, and build their team around guys in their mid to early 30s, having, to be their position player core? I just don't know, especially when they're harping on the buzzword of run prevention. I'm not sure that Pete Alonso would fit into those long-term plans. But like I reported a couple weeks ago, the expectation is that they'll probably let him walk unless he signs a team-friendly deal. Now, what is a team-friendly deal? We don't really know.
Right. Is
it 4 years? Is it even 5 years? I'm not so sure. Maybe a 4-year deal, 110 million, 120 million. Like, that's what Yoenis Cespedes signed with the Mets years ago. And I know it was a different regime and different ownership. But, I think that, Alonso might wind up getting more years from another team, and the Mets might not be comfortable going that far. So I think it stayed the same with, since that story came out and in the last couple of weeks, optimism stayed the same. That I think that he's going to wind up with another team this offseason.